We're four friends with hot takes on food media.
And we're here to review and recap all kinds of food shows in bite-sized seasons.
Plus, virtual potlucks, cooking adventures, and food memes.
Welcome to Pod Appétit Gourmet Takes.
Hey, it's Justine.
Hi, it's LJ.
And it's me, Meg.
And welcome back to another episode of Pod Appétit. So, no Amanda this episode because she is otherwise engaged, but you have got your three other wonderful hosts, myself, Justine, and Meg, here to hold the fort down. We are going to kick things off, firstly, as we always do, by talking about what we have been up to ourselves in the kitchen. So, Meg, I'm going to come to you first. What have you been making, if anything?
For once, I actually made something again that I said I would make again. I often say, oh yeah, I would totally make this recipe again, and then I don't. But I made Samin's grilled onigiri because it was super easy to make. We talked about that in our potluck episode for salt, fat, acid, heat. And they went even better this time. I did use short grain rice. It was great. Mm-hmm. I used a little bit less soy sauce upon first application so that it wouldn't get all soggy, and it turned out great.
So you've improved on your previous technique.
I have, and I didn't use the rice cooker only because I thought I'd just do it on the stove because that's what the recipe called for. I love my rice cooker because it's got a non-stick interior, so it's really easy to get the rice out, whereas my big old pan isn't non-stick, but you know, the results are nice, so I thought I'd stick with the stove.
Nice. How about you, Justine?
I'm having like the brain moment where I'm like, I know I eat food every day, but no, there is one thing I remember I made because I put it on my Instagram. I made a carrot and sweet potato soup, and it was
I saw that.
So yummy.
It looks so good.
Oh,
Yeah, it's really
so
good. Yeah, and with croutons, right?
Yeah, we had some sourdough bread that I was like, this is gonna go stale. Let's make croutons.
Yes.
And threw some rosemary on there. I loved it. Because, like, I don't know about you, but, like, I like eating the soup with, like, a big crouton, which is kind of just like an oil bomb.
Yeah,
you know?
I love that.
Yeah.
It's nice to get the texture contrast.
It sounds gross, but it's yummy.
No, it's not gross. If you use good oil, obviously, if you use a terrible, like, oil with no flavor, then I can imagine that being gross. But, like, nice olive oil.
Very good, from scratch, yummy. It's winter.
It is that it is. I have, after my epic, Thanksgiving efforts in the kitchen, I have basically stepped back from all things kitchen related and just like, I'm done for the year. I expended all my effort. I'm now 8 months pregnant. I cannot do anymore. So I haven't really been cooking much, but I did make the other day for lunch it's a Nigella recipe, I think. I actually kind of know it off by heart now.
Microwave?
A microwave. Yeah, I know. Hilarious. No, it doesn't involve the microwave. It's something called rockamole, which is basically like guacamole with Roquefort cheese smushed together. It's delicious. Me and my friends actually make it. It's like a go-to dip for like if people are coming over. We all love it. And the reason I made it is because normally, when I was not pregnant, I had IBS and avocados were one of my triggers. So I avoid avocados normally. But weirdly, one of the things that I found out when you become pregnant is that quite often people's IBS symptoms disappear. And I tested that out and I have been able to eat avocados. So I've been having like avocado on toast and stuff, which is great because I love them and it's been really horrible not to be able to eat them. So I just thought, oh God, I've only got like 6 weeks left of being pregnant. I need to make the most of this time with avocados. So I was like, I'm gonna make rockamole and I'm just gonna make a big batch of it and just work my way through it all week. And that's what I've done. So it was delicious. It's just really easy with avocados and all the stuff you'd put in a normal guac, and then just add some Roquefort cheese and it just kicks it up a gear. It's really nice. So
yeah, sounds like a
really
good
nice.
dip, yeah.
Yeah. That is what we have been cooking. But on the menu for today's episode, we are continuing with our exploration of the most recent season of the Great British Bake Off 2020. And we are covering episode 3, Bread Week, and episode 4, Chocolate Week. But let's start with bread. Like all good meals. So Bread Week, Netflix had this to say about Bread Week: just what you need. Free-form soda breads, vivid rainbow-coloured bagels, and mighty, meaningful harvest plaques see the cooks rising to the occasion.
I love me a good bread pun.
Yes, exactly. And so did Netflix.
Okay, I just have to start out by saying that I doubt Paul Hollywood's credentials as a bread expert.
Do you? Ooh, beef.
Well, there's a challah bread recipe that we shared on
Oh my God.
Twitter.
I forgot about this. It's the most embarrassing thing.
So Paul Hollywood has made a challah recipe. First off, he spelled it like the cactus you might see in the American Southwest, cholla, Cholla. So right off the bat, not really spelled in any traditional way. He made this recipe with butter and milk. Yep, that's not really how challah works. It's usually just oil, and it also has yeast. Well, Paul's recipe has yeast. And in the introduction to the recipe, he says, this is great for Passover. Ah, yes, Passover, the holiday where everyone traditionally eats leavened bread.
Oh my
Wait a
goodness.
second.
It's like error after faux pas in that recipe. I don't know how it got past any kind of edit. Like, they obviously had no one Jewish working on that team. It's embarrassing.
I wanted to mention this too because I feel like we see in both of these episodes many examples of Paul Hollywood never having ever met a Jewish person.
Even though he actually has on Bake Off, it doesn't ever seem to, help him in any way. What an idiot.
Oh, shots fired.
Well, it is please, that's gone to print. Like, not just him, but everyone who worked on that should be ashamed of themselves, really. Yes. So, yes, we get to see Paul talk about bread, which obviously, as Meg has suggested, he knows nothing about. So the first challenge the bakers had in this episode was they had to make 2 soda bread loaves in the signature challenge, one sweet and one savoury, with a butter. Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of good breads going on in that challenge. I got very, very hungry. You can't really go wrong with bread, cheese, olives. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. I really liked Lottie's breakfast concept just because I like breakfast, and blueberry scone-like soda bread sounded really appealing to me. And I loved the back and forth with her and Paul where she was trying to read his leading questions about how many blueberries to use. And she's like, maybe more, maybe none.
Yeah. No, nothing. Don't worry. I didn't even mention blueberries. There won't be
I love
any.
it. Lottie just continuously more and more just being like, I'm out.
Yeah. Oh, man. Lottie, in the next episode, she really struggles.
Yeah.
I feel like I would overthink it, but if you're making one butter and typically they made flavored butters, do they have to go with both the savory bread and the sweet bread?
I wondered this as well, because I thought surely you wouldn't necessarily want a savory. I don't know. There's only certain flavors that would go with both. Like maybe a honey or a maple.
Yeah,
would
but
work,
not like a garlic butter.
No, exactly. Yeah,
I wondered this
also
too.
wondered that.
I thought maybe this was another casualty of the having to cut for so many contestants, because I think that they probably did make 2 flavored butters and just they never ever talked about it. Because as far as I can remember in the judging, there were no comments on the butter, really. It was all about the bread.
And they only had a brief shot of a couple of them making the butter. And at that point, Laura was like, I don't understand the point of making your own butter when you can just buy it. She was like, I don't get it.
I did like that they talked to Linda about her butter because she used Max Honey from Max Honeybees.
Yeah.
I thought that was really sweet.
No, I thought that was sweet where she was like, I'm doing this for Mac. It was very cute.
Peter's been really sweet too. He keeps making gluten-free recipes in honor of his brother Andrew, even though he doesn't have to, even though it's not part of the brief. That's really sweet too.
It is sweet.
Yeah.
It's just a shame that they don't always seem to hit the mark 100% of the time. Like when they judged his breads, they were saying that they were a bit gluey, I guess because of the way you have to make a gluten-free bread. You know, it was just a bit falling to bits and not quite great in terms of texture, which was a shame. But I really appreciate that he does that. I think that's very sweet. I was really skeptical of Laura's sweet bread because I was like, grated, I just couldn't imagine it in my head, like grated marzipan in a bread. But they seem to love it, so maybe it does work. I mean, it clearly does work if they like it, but I guess if you don't like marzipan, that would be an issue. But I do generally like marzipan. I've just never really thought about having it in a bread.
I do love the combo of almond and cherry, so I thought that sounded really good too. Maybe it's like when you grate butter for a recipe, maybe you don't really get the texture in the end result. It just sort of nicely evens out.
I'm not even sure I've ever had like, I mean, like, have I had? I guess I've had like bread with stuff. Sweet stuff. Bread with sweet stuff in it. I don't know.
I mean,
is it a real big thing over there?
Yeah, I think having sweet like loaves, like with dried fruit in, that's quite common. And I'm trying to think what else. Yeah, like fruit and nut type loaves. That's a thing you'd get. Yeah.
But also particularly like a soda bread.
Yeah, I don't eat a lot of soda bread. I don't know. Maybe I'd have to like get someone like Mark to take me to Ireland and tell me about it.
I like that. Mark baking for Ireland.
Yeah, with his Irish stout and his Irish cheddar, and he had a real theme going on there. Actually, both Marks did, because Mark with a C was drawing on his Cornish.
Everything
like,
Cornish.
Where he lives. So his cheese and his buttermilk that went all over
buttermilk.
That was so funny.
But it was Hermine who got the Hollywood handshake for her
soda
bread list.
Yes.
With salmon
and
the second handshake of the season.
Yeah, salmon. I wasn't sure whether that would work, but I guess because it was smoked, actually, I could see that cutting through the soda bread really well, and also the cheese going really well with it. So it did make me want to try that. I wasn't convinced when she was talking about it, but the way they were saying how good it was when they were trying it, it made me want to have some.
Yeah, I like that she got a handshake because it was something complex and unique, something that like he never really thought of before. So
no,
yeah,
I mean, there are a lot of things that Paul has never thought of before, let's face it. I think we also need to mention Rowan, because he basically ate a lemon. He made a lemon drizzle cake in a sandstorm. So that was never going to fly, really, I don't think.
Yeah, gritty polenta cake.
It was the way he was describing it when he was making it. He was like, it's quite gritty, but I sort of like it. And I was like, I don't think you might be the only one.
I like polenta cake. I can't say that it was terribly gritty, though.
No, very strange.
They also listed Sura as doing well in this challenge.
Yes, her flavors were really good. The za'atar that she was, I love za'atar, so I was really pleased to see that she was using that. I can imagine that going really well with the olives and stuff that she put in her bread. It was just a shame that hers were quite pale, weren't they? So
yeah,
that was their main criticism. But like as I say, there's only so far you can go wrong by adding cheese and fruit to bread. Like, it's going to taste nice as long as you nail the bread. So yeah,
and don't burn your fruit.
Don't burn your fruit. No, soak it in booze instead. So in the technical challenge this episode, they were asked to make a batch of rainbow bagels. And I would just like to say that Paul Hollywood does not speak for the rest of the UK when he says that they represent the NHS for him. Because even though the NHS have used a rainbow during the pandemic as one of their symbols, everyone obviously still sees that bright, vibrant rainbow as an LGBTQ plus symbol. Like, I don't know what the hell they were thinking dropping that in there, but I think that was a real misstep, because I remember Twitter like absolutely ripping that to shreds when that aired originally and being like, what?
Yeah, maybe don't co-opt that symbol, and also maybe don't make horrible bagels out of it.
I know. Oh my goodness. So the rainbow bagel thing, did that originate in America? I can't remember.
I'd say
That's
probably.
what Paul said, but who knows? What is he even talking about? No one in America is like, hey, let's go grab a rainbow bagel. It's not a thing.
I mean, kind of, yeah, in LA, like every food here is an Instagram food.
Oh, yeah, sure. I've seen the Instagram bagels, but people only get them for Instagram. No one's like, I'm really craving a rainbow bagel.
A rainbow bagel.
For
It's
sure.
a gimmick. It's definitely a gimmick. But yeah, I think it did. I seem to remember it originating in the US and then we picked it up over here. But yeah, I think it's one of those things that is like a flash in the pan, and then everyone's like, we should just get regular bagels.
This is the kind of thing that annoys me about this season as a whole, and it started with the bus cakes of like doing these sort of Instagram-y American things. Like I said before, I'm like, I come to Bake Off to see things that I've never heard of before and be like, what is happening over there in Britain?
Yeah, it's
What
very
is a
gimmicky
Florentine?
season. I mean, overall, I do find it very entertaining, which I think is number one, what Great British Bake Off should be. And calming and soothing. So I do get what you're saying.
Linda did well in this challenge. I'm so pleased for her.
She did very well. And Rowan got last because he just really messed up this episode over and over.
I did enjoy his back and forth with Matt in this challenge, where he was talking about, he was measuring his dough, and he was like, oh, I don't understand centimeters. I think in inches. 9.5 is quite respectable. And Matt's face just like breaking to like the fourth wall to the audience, just being like, ooh. So much
Matt's
innuendo
mugging for the camera was pretty good.
Yeah, so funny.
But then Rowan's bagels turned out soft and wrinkly, and
Well, he
no one
just
wants that.
boiled them for so long. I was just like, what are you doing? No, get them out. They look terrible.
Rowan's got a lot of quips in this whole episode, and watching it the second time round, I'm like, Rowan's really depressed here because he just, oh, I'm all da 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 da. Oh, this is me. I guess I'm this and that. Like this sort of attitude.
Yeah, when Noel was like, oh, did you come? And Rowan was like, last? Of course I did. Like,
Yeah,
I think
like that.
I don't think he's I didn't read it as depressed. I think he's just like, I literally don't care. It's fine. Like, I don't care where I come. And I just think, like, if that's your attitude going into the competition, then I'm like, you're not really meant to be in this competition for too long, because those that win, like, want to try hard and, like, do the best that they can do. They don't just keep
Well, the
ignoring
way I read it is
advice.
what a lot of contestants do, which is, you know, trying to make light of it. Everyone's, of course, sad and disappointed when they do well, but when they don't do well, but they want to put on their best face for, you know, for the camera, for the viewers. I think it's him just trying to be like, oh, I'm fine, you know, trying to walk it off is how I read it.
Yeah, that's kind of what I think as well. But I also think he's actually not that bothered about improving. I think he's just like, this is how I cook and this is how I bake, and I'll go as far as I go. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
Well, quite.
we're burying the lead
Dead
a little
last.
bit here. I mean, you guys don't
Yeah.
have to put up with Rowan past this episode. And also, we see this trend in, let's say, other contestants of not improving throughout the whole show.
Yeah. So
I
yeah.
will say, at first I was with the bagels. Peter's like wide hoops. I was like, oh no. But like Peter is like consistently like spot on with good flavors that like even when he like messes up something and it looks bad, they go like flavor spot on. And I'm like, yay.
Yeah, well
The
done.
hula hoops. Aside from the rainbow-ness of the bagels, it did seem like a good challenge because bagels are difficult. And like they said, boiling is a pretty interesting component of a baked good. You don't typically
is.
boil something before baking it.
And I do think bagels are not something that many people make anymore. Like, they'll go and buy them from a bakery, usually. So I think it's a curveball when you get that as a technical, to be like, oh, well, I know you know, even if you know how they're made, you're like, I know they're boiled, but how long for? And, you know, that's the challenge of it. So, and it's unusual, as you say, to boil anything when you're baking. So it's kind of like, oh God, how does this work? So yeah, I think a lot of them struggled on knowing how long to boil for and then how long to bake for. And the other thing that I think was the challenge in this one with them being rainbow bagels is you can't tell the colour as well as you could if it was just a plain bagel, because you can't tell, you know, if it's overbaked, you can't tell. The browning is really difficult to see. So a lot of them fell down on that as well.
Yeah, Linda did great. Mark with a C did really good.
Yeah, great colours on his.
Dave did also not good.
Yeah, Dave again struggled with the boiling, didn't he? Mm-hmm. So the showstopper was that I don't know, a bready item that we all love to make this time of year. Supposedly a harvest bread plaque showing what you
made a harvest bread plaque.
Most grateful for.
I thought this was very similar to their previous Bread Week challenges, showstopper things. Make something big out of bread.
I've seen like churches and do this sort of thing at like harvest festivals in the autumn over here. I don't know if it's the same in the States, but they're those kind of bread offerings are not designed to be eaten.
Right. I think somebody sort of mentioned that.
Yeah, they did.
Maybe it was Rowan.
I think it was Rowan. Yeah. But it's like it's really hard to like make something like that structurally good and look design-wise really good, but also make it taste nice as well, because that's normally you'd get one or the other. So it is an interesting challenge. So yeah, we had lots of different things that people are grateful for. Mark is grateful for Buddhism. He did a Dharma wheel.
His turned out great. It looked good. The judges said it tasted good. It seemed like it delivered on all points. And he got very Buddhist in one point in this episode where he's like, you can't control the past, you can't control the future. Everyone's freaking out about stuff they can't control. And it's just a very be in the moment, be in the present type of mentality. And I was like, yeah, go Mark.
Good old Mark.
Yeah, I also enjoyed Laura's being grateful for musical theatre. As
I really liked that one.
Yeah, and it did mean that she got to rib Paul for like having never seen a West End show, which he said almost proudly, and I was like, there's nothing to be proud of there, Paul. It doesn't make you a better human, a worse human if anything, but yeah, it was good.
I will say the people who did Focaccia, very smart.
Yes, Focaccia, not the most difficult of breads. That's good. Although Hermine, she did her take on a brioche in 3.5 hours, which Paul was like convinced she would never be able to do, and it wouldn't be a brioche, which he maintained all the way into judging. But I kind of liked her attitude where she was like, well, I like doing it, so I'm going to do it anyway. I don't care what he says. And I was like, good for you, Hermine. Do it. So even though it meant that she had real issues with her timings, like it just wasn't proving, and she was really late into the oven with that bit, she kind of seemed to have basically got there, even though Paul was like moaning about it not being a brioche. Like the rest of her bread was really good, and it was still not terrible, you know? So I think good for her for sticking to her guns.
Oh, Paul.
Yeah.
I really liked how Linda's looked. They said it didn't taste all that exciting, but the cow was so cute. I love that she's like painting the little eyelashes on the cow.
And she needed love into her bread because she loves the animals on her uncle's farm.
That was really sweet.
Very sweet.
Yeah, I thought Sarah's looked good too.
Me too. That was the one I would most want to eat.
Those little tomatoes with the feta inside, they look good. Yeah. I actually thought that Dave's house, they gave him a bit of sass for like, Paul was like, I would have done it by making little individual bricks. And I was like, I thought the woven thing that he did was actually quite effective for like bricks on a house. So I was like, why are you being mean to him about how he did his bricks? Like, it clearly looks like a house. What's the issue?
And plus, if he had done individual bricks, Paul probably would have said something like, are you sure you have time for that? And then
exactly.
Steely gaze.
Yeah. Steely gaze.
His wolf eyes. Yeah. I thought Peter's approach was hilarious. Like, he definitely went for design over actually tasting good, didn't he? Because he was like, oh, I've discovered if you make like a bagel dough, it holds its shape. And I'm like, yeah, but also it tastes terrible, surely.
It was so flat. The final product was just flat as a pancake. It was not very interesting to look at.
It just looked like some flat, terrible pita dough with some seeds and herbs on top.
Oh, you know what was appetizing? A close-up of Noel's heels.
The Boot Brothers, they looked so good.
Yeah, it was very cute. Very cute.
Something that I had forgotten but remembered upon watching it a second time is that Peter was in line to be sent home this episode. Yeah. I did not remember that. And I was like, no, Peter, not my baby Peter.
Yeah, Peter, Dave, and Rowan were all like up for the chop this episode.
I would have been pissed.
I know.
Any of them, because it's like, I've wanted Rowan gone since day one.
Well, he got the boot, literally.
He did get the boot with his boots, which, as Justine would say, about time.
All style and no substance. That's him. And it's on Noel's CV, apparently.
Yes, definitely. And then Mark with a C got Star Baker, which I thought was so cute. Obviously, he's there with his girls had obviously joined the filming bubble because he's a single dad. And so to get the hugs from those girls at the end, it was so cute. I loved that. It was really sweet.
You know, I thought it would be Sarah because she did better in the signature.
They did really like his showstopper, though. I feel like the showstopper is what they put the most weight into when judging.
And he did do better on the technical challenge. Like, Sura came quite far down the list as well. So I'm not surprised that they went for Mark. And I was, I think he did well. I think he deserved it.
Mark's great.
Like any good meal, you need a break between your main and your dessert. So we have just finished talking about bread. We're going to have a break for some adverts, and we will be back with a heck a lot of chocolate. The next episode in this season of Bake Off was episode 4, Chocolate Week, where the chefs hope to score points with gooey brownies, get twisted over chocolate babkas, and beat the heat with white chocolate tiered celebration cakes. Because you know that if it's Chocolate Week, we're having a heat wave. Like, that's just what happens.
Worst episode of the season.
Oh, really? You think?
Yeah, for me, this is where it really went downhill.
Oh,
I mean, as far as everyone's performance, maybe, everyone seemed to really struggle in this episode with everything.
Well, I mean, first up, Brownies was the signature challenge, and that is such a basic bake that the fact that pretty much all of them were awful at it, I was a bit like, hang on a minute, what has happened here? Like,
it was shocking. And Paul, was throwing shade. He said pretty much what you said, that brownies are so basic, and if you can't get a brownie right, well then, and he just sort of trails off. It's like, well, yeah, everyone should be able to make a brownie.
I think I can't remember who said it. I think it might have been Lottie, but she said, we all overcomplicated it. We should have just done a basic brownie and tried to nail that, because we probably would have done a lot better.
I think that is exactly what happened. Everyone's like, oh, I gotta impress the judges, I gotta do something out of the box.
Yeah, they all had like not strange, but like interesting layers or flavors or things that they were doing, and it was just too much.
But also, like, Prue would not accept a cake like brownie.
No.
She's like, this is not a brownie.
But I don't think I would either. I like a fudgy brownie in the middle with the crackly top. Like, otherwise it's just a chocolate cake. Like,
exactly. I do think you have to pay attention to that, because that kind of is a distinguishing factor between a brownie and just a sheet pan cake, right?
Yeah.
And the crackly top,
but then
too.
Why do people say, do you like a fudgy brownie or a cake like brownie? Like, if that exists in the world.
I don't say that. I just assume all brownies should be fudgy.
I did have a British brownie question for you, LJ.
Oh, okay.
So I couldn't tell if this was a UK thing or just a bake-off thing, but they insisted that the tops of the brownies have decoration. So icing, chocolate chips, something on top. I would say, to generalize, don't you tend to do that in the US, and I feel like it's kind of gilding the lily, too much sweet on sweet. Like, I don't want a frosted brownie.
No, we don't do that. We don't really decorate. I think that was just a conceit for the show to make it harder. I guess because they thought just making a regular brownie would be too easy, but clearly they can't do that.
Yeah, well, it was in the brief. All they were like, we need 18 chocolate brownies. You can put whatever you want in it. If you want.
Yeah, we put stuff in it, so you'll quite often get brownies with like nuts in it or like fruit or I don't know, like in the mixture, but not on top, if you know what I mean.
That's why I liked Peter's approach, because he thought, well, I have to have decoration, but I don't want to have it too sweet. So I thought the figs were really smart idea. They looked great, and they probably, complemented the sweetness of the brownie.
Upside downy brownie.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he had probably the right idea. Like, his were probably one of the more simpler approaches. His choice of flavors, fruit and nut, is not going to add. Where I struggled was a bit what you were saying, Meg, with the frosted, when you add like extra sweetness on top of a brownie, which is already really sickly sweet, it's just too much. It just doesn't work. So I think, the guys who were doing the s'more brownies or the salted caramel on top with extra meringue, I just think, no, you want something different. You want like a fruit or something to cut through.
I did like Mark's and Laura's s'mores brownies just because I like s'mores. I probably would have really enjoyed those, although I'm not really sure why Mark put cranberries on his.
Yeah.
That seemed a little bit odd to me.
Well, then maybe he was going for that fruit thing, like I say. I don't know. Also liked the idea of Lottie's having like a cheesecake topping, but I think that's one of those things that in theory you think, oh, but then in practice it's probably a hot mess. Do you know what I mean?
It certainly was in this case.
Cheesecake swirl brownie.
Do you like it with wet freezer juice on top or without?
I could do without the wet freezer juice.
Would you like it to look like an actual car crash, perhaps?
Yeah. I like to eat my brownies with a straw.
Anything else to say about Signature?
These are not the best bakers in the world.
No, I think that's abundantly clear. It's now, what season is this now of Bake Off in the UK?
11.
It's like, yeah. So, we've been through many people, like maybe we're just scraping the bottom of the barrel now in terms of good bakers in the UK.
That's why they had to pull from the newest generation of wee babies like Peter, who are
like Peter,
a mere 20 years old.
You're right. We need the next gen that have grown up.
LJ, why didn't you apply?
Why don't I apply? I actually keep trying to get my dad to apply because I think he'd be really good, but he's like, no, I can't.
He could make his mouse pies.
He could make his mouse pie. He could. But he bakes a lot of bread and he makes a lot of cake, and it's delicious. And I just think I think he'd nail things like the technical challenges, which actually probably suggests that he probably won't stay in too long because they don't hold much weight. But but I think he'd do really well. But I just don't think he can be asked with the hassle, to be honest. He's like, I just like doing it at home. I don't need to be on a TV show. I do keep threatening to enter him though. So the technical challenge this week was a chocolate babka, more delicious than you get in New York, according to Prue.
Boo.
Which what?
Wow.
Can I just say?
Boo, no.
Excuse me? Again, another thing I need to clarify, that she does not speak for the rest of the UK. I'm so embarrassed and I apologise.
I haven't been to New York, but I have had chocolate babka directly from New York. One of my coworkers used to go there all the time, and she'd bring some back for the office, and it was the best babka I've ever had. So I definitely have to strongly disagree with Prue.
Shaking my damn head is all I can say.
I was also surprised by how few bakers had even heard of babka. So many of them were like, oh, I've never heard of this. I've never seen this.
Yeah, it's a strange one because I've definitely heard of it. I don't know where they grew up, but maybe.
You did also live in New York for a while.
I did. It's true. It is weird because we do have a lot of Polish people in the UK, and a large percentage of them are Jewish. And that's where it came from. So I'm surprised. I think if you grew up in a city with a big Jewish population, which I did and live in now, I think you'd probably have heard of it, but not a lot of people in the UK necessarily have. So that would be why it was a mystery.
Lottie's struggles continued. I just had to lull at her super long babka. It's just overhanging the pan.
Yes.
And she says, maybe it'll rise in the middle. I'm like, Lottie, what kind of magical thinking is that? Of course it's not going to do that.
Lottie just gives up this whole episode.
Well, this is why I always say the technical challenge is actually the mark of who has baking knowledge and who doesn't. Because I'm like, in what universe did you think that was going to rise in the middle? Like, what? That's not how baking works.
Or Sura's was quite long as well, and she cut off the ends, which I think between their two approaches, that was probably the better idea. But then, of course, her babka was super small and flat compared to everyone else's.
Yeah, she kind of wrapped it in on itself and then just was like, well, I'll chop that end off to get it in the tin. Linda, an absolute masterclass again on nailing a technical challenge, just getting it in the tin. I think you're supposed to, because obviously they all had the same amount of dough and were given the same measurements. I assume, I've never made one, but I assume what you're meant to do once you've sort of twisted it or whatever, shaped it, is squish it so that it squishes to the right length, and then you kind of push it, because she seemed to kind of scoop it on her bench scraper and it kind of shortened it, you know, because it squished up, and then she just plopped it in the pan and it was exactly the right size. And I was just like, that's how you do it, Linda. Well done.
She definitely seemed to have the right idea.
Yeah.
And got first place in the technical.
Go, Linda. Yeah, this episode, I kind of stopped hating on Linda because I was like, you're doing it. Okay, you can stay.
This episode, not last episode. She nailed it last episode in the technical as well.
I don't know. I think because she was like a little down in the hole for me, she needed to rise a couple.
Rise like her babka.
Yes, rise like a leavened bread.
Let's see. Lottie did worst.
Yeah, yes. I'm not surprised given her approach.
I was so worried for Lottie this whole episode.
I think she was struggling for sure. So let's see how they do in the showstopper. So the showstopper on a hot day was a white chocolate celebration cake, which they had to bake with a specific celebration in mind. And as we all know, white chocolate has the lowest melting point of many chocolates. So doing anything with that on a hot day is not recommended. But they made good use of their fridges and their freezers to get this done, I think.
Yeah, it didn't go as horribly as it could have.
No, I thought that it was going to be a complete disaster, but actually it wasn't too bad.
I feel like it did have the sort of pitfall kind of worked into the brief of sweet on sweet, like with the brownies.
Yeah.
And Matt commented on this and
Yes.
how Prue will be like, oh, it's far too sweet. You must mix some mud in there to complement.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was hilarious. And he was like, you've told me to make a sweet cake.
I'm just doing what you told me to. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Fortunately, Linda's tribute turned out much better this time than the ambulance.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
that ambulance, yes. I was so pleased as well because, yeah, this tribute's for her daughter who's passed away. And I just thought, oh God, if this goes like the
Yeah.
ambulance, it's going to be so painful to watch. But luckily, it looked really nice, and they liked the cake, so thank goodness.
Not the best piping work, but
Yeah. Lottie, I think, did really well. She seemed to pull it back much better in terms of decoration, like, and presentation in this challenge, because I really liked her idea of doing the kind of geode crystal type decoration with those huge kind of white chocolate extravagant bits that are stuck on the side. Yeah.
More is more, as she said.
Yes, exactly. I think she kind of was like, I need to go hard or go home here and I need to nail it. But sadly, she overbaked her cake, which is such a shame, because I think she would have really been like safe if she'd nailed every element of that, but bone dry.
I do think the presentation of it is probably what saved her this episode, because she did so poorly in the other challenges. But just the fact that she made a very nice looking cake I think is what saved her.
Absolutely.
I'm really enjoying her sort of frenemy relationship with Mark with a K.
Yes, I like that too. It's really fun. Lots of banter.
Mark with a K did really well. He used marula fruit, which I found very interesting. I don't know if I've ever even heard of a marula fruit before.
I have heard of elephants getting drunk on it. I have heard that, but I've never had it myself, so I don't know.
And I liked his less is more decoration. They call this type of decorating like naked cakes sometimes is what I've heard it called. I think this is a really nice technique, and he used it well here.
Hermine's cake gave Prue a prugasm.
Oh, yeah, a prugasm. I don't know if I ever want to hear one of those again, but I'm pleased for Hermine that she got one, I guess.
Unfortunately, that's not, the equivalent of the Hollywood handshake. It's not like, oh, you got the prugasm.
I don't want that to be like the Hollywood handshake. I don't think we want to go there. I don't think she should do that again. Prue, please stop.
So Sura's cake was leaning and raw and not edible.
That's such a shame. Such a shame. When the moment she said, I'm watering down the chocolate, that was the moment where I was like, uh-oh, I don't think this is a good idea. I've literally never heard of this before, and I don't think it's a good idea. Yeah, they weren't sure whether that was the reason why her cake went weird, but I'm pretty sure that can't have helped. When she said it, Prue and Paul also looked horrified, so I was like, well, that's not a good sign.
Yeah.
Definitely not. Well, yeah, so poor Sura went home. I was really sad to see her go. I really liked her as a contestant. She always had great expressions for the camera. I loved her interaction with the hosts, with Noel especially.
Well, Noel said, I really like Lottie and Sura, so I will go instead of them if you want. Which I thought
And the
was
judges
really funny.
readily accepted. They were like, okay.
I thought that was cute.
Felt that Sura could have gone far.
I think she could have too. I was a little surprised to see her.
She had a bad week, didn't she? She just really didn't nail anything. And I just think because Lottie was the only other contender, I guess, that they had for sending home. And because she'd managed to at least pull it back with the presentation in the showstopper, they were like, okay, I guess that says it.
Yeah. It's starting to get difficult to be like, okay, who do I want to go home? Because I am starting to really like all the people at this point.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? It's getting to the sharp end.
Yeah, that was the thing. I liked Sura and Lottie both a lot. And I guess it's just what you were saying. Lottie delivered on presentation, not so much taste, but Sura, unfortunately, fell short on presentation and, taste. Edibility. You couldn't even eat it.
You can't eat it. It's a bit of a problem. I did enjoy what she said at the end, though, as she was sort of leaving. She was like, I hate white chocolate. I hate chocolate. I'm never having chocolate again. Don't come at me with any chocolate.
Well, I loved that because when I watched the finale of this season, you know how they show what the bakers have been up to. And when it showed Sura, it said, Sura has been able to eat chocolate again. And I was like, what's that all about? I had totally forgotten that she got sent home on chocolate week. So it was pretty funny to rewatch and be like, oh, yeah.
And Mark with a K got Star Baker.
Yay, Mark.
Oh, yeah. Love Mark with a K.
It was either him or Peter they had in mind, and I think they made the right call. I'm glad they did Mark. I think Mark probably just edged it. He did slightly better in the technical. I think his showstopper was probably slightly better.
These two episodes were definitely the Marks episodes. Yes. They both did great.
Love the Marks.
I could hear Mark K say 8 over and over just for minutes on end. I mean, he already did. He was like, 8? 8? 8? 8? 8?
8? Like, say it again.
Please continue. I don't mind. I love it.
It's very cute. It was. He's got a great accent. I thought it was funny when they were all congratulating everyone and saying goodbye to Sura that I think Lottie turned to Mark and was like, "Oh, you can't tell that you're really happy." And he's like, "Really?
Yeah, you're hiding it well."
Of course you can. It was so funny. He was obviously like beaming from ear to ear. So sweet. So sweet.
Yeah, so 8 bakers remain.
8 bakers remain. Yeah. It's going to be interesting to rewatch. Obviously, all of us have watched the season before. Amanda's usually our voice of obliviousness when it comes to Bake Off, because she's watching it like live with our podcast, so she's got no idea what's going to happen. It is interesting to rewatch and spot the kind of the signs of what comes next. So that was a stirring conversation, and now we're going to see what is on our back burner today. Well, it's nearly Christmas, so we decided to dedicate this episode's back burner to none other than the Great British Bake Off holiday specials, which we got in the UK last year, but they have dropped on Netflix for you guys in the US this year. So there's 2 episodes to talk about. There's the Great British Christmas Bake Off with former Great British Bake Off cast members Tom, Jan, Terry and Bryony, who were, I think Tom and Jan was filmed in 2017 and Terry and Bryony were the season that was filmed in 2018.
Love that season.
They were making all things Christmassy.
I loved this. I think that Bryony and Terry's season might be my favorite season of the Great British Bake Off. Like,
Yes.
I just absolutely adore that. We've got Rahul, we've got Kim Joy in that season.
Yeah.
Such
Sandy
good
and Noel are the
people.
hosts. I know,
Talent.
so good. Really talented.
Watching Terry, I loved him at the on his season, but watching him in this, I was like, Terry walked so Rowan could run. They were really cut from the same cloth. You know, they're just like in their own little worlds, doing their own little thing, perfectly happy and not bothered at all that they're in a competition, which part of me absolutely loves them for that. So it was good to see Terry again. And I remember loving Bryony when she was on as well. I thought she was brilliant. I also really loved Jan.
I love Jan.
She was so great.
She's a woman after my own heart because she's very logical and methodical. And I love how she thinks about the science of stuff and like has little like hacks that she's thought of to like thinking about the science of it, which I absolutely love that. I have to say, I couldn't remember Tom, which was
I did
really
not
bad.
remember Tom either. I have that in my notes as well. I'm like, I don't remember this
But I
guy.
liked him in this. You know what? I
very
think
likable.
they picked a good group of people. All these people were all very funny. Like the casting of this group, great.
Yes. Yes. And I think part of the reason I didn't remember Tom is because when they did his recap, he went out quite early, I think, on that season.
Yeah, I think they
So,
said like episode 2 or 3 or something.
Yeah, so that's
Gotcha.
fine. I don't feel so bad about that then.
Well, he did great in this.
He did.
Yeah.
He did really good.
His showstopper, I think, looked the best of all of them.
I was
But
gonna
Sugar
say
Dome was
that.
very impressive.
Because he's supposed, they said that he worked in engineering or like architecture or something.
Yeah, he's an architect.
Yeah. So, you know, whenever you hear that and they have to do some kind of construction type challenge, like gingerbread buildings, whenever I hear that, I'm like, okay, the people who are good at like science and like that type of, or maths or that type of thing, they're going to nail this because it's all about, you know, making sure that it's structurally sound. And he really, really did that. So, and I was pleased that he managed to pull off the glass dome because obviously he went out, I think, trying to make caramel or something with sugar works.
Yeah, Tom's was beautiful. I thought Bryony's was great, and she had like the surprise after surprise.
Yeah, I loved Brownies.
Yes.
I loved the Polar Express vibe of it. And
Yes.
yeah, the bribes for the judges were great. The little mini alcohol bottles in the train.
Yes. I really thought Terry's Chrysler building was going to be an absolute disaster, but it actually didn't turn out as bad as I thought it would be. And
It turned out rather nice.
His little surprise of the like little confetti and then Paul and Prue models like dancing, I just could not stop laughing. That was
These
so
are
funny.
showstoppers. You know, I watched this and I was like, these are good bakers.
Absolutely. These are
Jan
literally
had
show-stopping.
208 instructions. Like, that is someone taking things seriously. She had post-it notes. Like, I was like, she's done so well. Like, this is people who can bake and deserve to be here.
Absolutely. I was really rooting for Bryony the whole time because,
Yes.
like I said, I loved her season. I loved her. I thought the train was delightful.
Yes.
Love to see her back with her best buddy Noel.
Aw, Bryony and Noel. I love their
Yes.
chemistry.
Yes.
Yes, I think she definitely deserved it. I also thought it was yet more proof that the technical means nothing, though, because she didn't do very well on the technical.
No, she
Yeah.
did not.
I have to say, these episodes as well also made me miss Sandy, because I forgot that Sandy was no longer presenting and that this was filmed last year.
I love Sandy so much.
Yeah.
I also just really enjoyed this episode because you can tell that they're not stressed out. They're just there to have fun.
Yeah.
Which makes for a really fun episode. Like, it's Christmas, everyone's dressed up, the judges aren't being overly critical, so the atmosphere of this whole episode is just really lovely and Christmassy.
It was cute. The second holiday special is the Great British New Year's Bake Off, which aired New Year's Day this year, I guess, for us. So, and that was with cast members of Derry Girls. So we had Siobhan McSweeney, who plays Sister Michael, Saoirse Monica Jackson, who plays Erin, Jamie Lee O'Donnell, who plays Michelle, Nicola Coughlan, who plays Claire, and Dylan Llewellyn, who plays James. Now, I watched this Bake Off episode on New Year's Day, quite hungover. Loved it. I had not watched Derry Girls when I watched this, and this is the episode that prompted me to actually go and watch Derry Girls, because they were all so hysterical, and it was really nice to watch this back, having now watched the show, because it's just one of my favorite shows that's come out recently, because it's so brilliant.
And these people, you can tell these people were cast to be their characters. They are their characters. That's what
brilliant.
I learned watching this. I was like, oh my God, it's them.
They definitely cast funny people to play funny people.
They're so funny.
Yeah,
all
it
of
really,
them.
really works.
It was hilarious. They had to do, what did they do? They had to do a trifle, some blinis, and a cake. I really enjoyed how competitive they were, even though they weren't all brilliant at baking. You had
Ugliest trifles ever.
I thought Nicola obviously is like the one that was like the favourite to win, because she'd done baking before. But then you had like Dylan, who was like, oh, I've done baking with my mum, I can do it. And then you got like Siobhan, who's like, I'm definitely going to win. I need to win. I need to beat Nicola. And then I think Jamie Lee was just surprised that what she was making actually was working, because she was like clueless.
Yeah, she gets one compliment and she's like, I'm amazing. I can bake anything now.
This
But
episode
also
was great.
Saoirse was not a baker beforehand, and like this episode was the first time she'd ever like baked any kind of cake, and I think she was a bit surprised by her own abilities as well at giving it a go. So that was nice.
Yeah, I enjoyed how the episode sort of subverted expectations, because they kept saying, oh, Nicola is so good, and I was like, okay, well, I guess she's going to win then.
Yeah.
But then, you know, she broiled her sponge.
She grilled it. Yeah.
She did something else that didn't turn out so well, and then I was like, oh, well, maybe this isn't as clear cut as I thought it would be. I thought that Siobhan might have been the dark horse. I thought that she was gonna pull ahead from behind, but I was wrong.
It was just so funny when she presented her cake at the end. She was like, this is a representation of the happiest days of my life. And it was just a mess.
Her aquarium slime. Oh my God.
And then when Paul said something like, you know, it would be great, but this is a baking show, and she was like, what is it? This used to be. It's just so funny.
They're so funny.
So good.
Yeah, I actually had a pretty similar story to yours, LJ. I watched this Bake Off episode, and then I was like, well, now I definitely have to watch Derry Girls. So I actually watched the whole first season in the last 2 days.
Wow.
I love it so much.
It's so good to binge as well. Yeah, I think it's brilliant. It's so good. I love it because for me, being on the mainland of the UK, there's a lot of the cultural references make so much sense, because obviously like we had the same pop culture, but I didn't grow up in a war zone essentially, and it's just like always mind blowing to my generation that didn't grow up in Northern Ireland, that how different life was there and the reality of that, even though it's so close to home. Absolutely brilliant show. I love it. It's so good. And and Saoirse won. And she just kept screaming.
She had never baked a cake before Bake Off, and yet she won.
I was so pleased for her. She was just screaming and screaming at the end, and I think just out of shock more than anything else. But I'm really pleased. She deserved it. She did so well.
I did think the lemon blueberry cake sounded really nice.
Yeah.
And apparently it tasted good too.
And I liked what Prue said at the end, actually, where she was like, it just proves that what she has always said is, if you can read, you can bake. And I do think there's definitely an element of truth to that. And I think a lot of people get intimidated to even start. But actually, if you try, like they did, like Jamie Lee and Saoirse proved, like you can do more than you ever thought was possible. So I think it was really nice to show that.
And also to quote Prue from the most recent Chocolate Week episode, you only have to be not the worst.
Yeah, I love that. And Lottie was like, great, that's really motivating. Thanks. That about wraps it up for our GBbo content this episode. I think I'm the only one that calls it that. Russ always laughs at me. Everyone else calls
What
it
did you say it again?
GBbo.
I'm always like, can we watch GBbo?
I like it. I'm adopting that.
GBbo. Yeah, I'll do it.
But we have some shout outs. We can't possibly finish an episode without doing that. We got a lot of positive reactions to our new season subject, GBbo. Edmonton Tourist couldn't wait to get stuck into our first episode where we covered episodes 1 and 2 of this season. And Alison from Art History for All podcast said that us covering the Great British Bake Off is truly what she needed. I think it's truly what we all needed, to be honest, at the end of this year. We shared a picture of Justine's chewy ginger cookies on National Cookie Day, and Mary and Vicky were very excited. Vicky said that she has never tried ginger cookies. She didn't specify whether she meant eating or making them, but either way, you should, Vicky, please. Go ahead, indulge. You won't regret it. We also shared on our socials my redo of Molly's pumpkin loaf. Many listeners may remember that I made this last Thanksgiving and I completely screwed it up by overfilling my loaf pan. And if you want to see exactly what happened, the footage is on our Instagram story, should you wish to relive that nightmare. And as I mentioned last episode, I managed to learn from my mistakes this year, and both Share Food and Jen Owens on Instagram are very complimentary about it. So thank you to you guys for cheering me on. And finally, Paul from the Varmints podcast got in touch to send on his best wishes for me, I'm sure for all of us, but for me having the baby.
We're all having your baby.
We're all having the baby together. It's like Handmaid's Tale, we're all in the same room. Virtually. No, he sent on his best wishes for me having the baby, and he even asked if he could get something from a baby shower registry for me, which is so kind of him. And I don't actually have one because it's not really a thing in the UK. We don't really have... Some people do, but it's just not caught on like it has in the US. But I really do appreciate the thought, Paul. So I thank you for that. But honestly, you guys supporting the podcast is really gift enough for me. So you do not need to get me anything more than that. And also thank you to everyone, as always, who likes, comments, reacts, I don't know what other verbs there are for engaging on social media, gets in touch with us. We love talking with all of you about all things cooking and food. So thank you for all your efforts this past couple of weeks as well. I would love to share a review from someone, but unfortunately we still haven't had a new one as of recording. So if you want to hear us read out your review of us on the show, please do submit one. It does help us out by helping people to find us on the various podcast hosting platforms. So please add one if you so wish. So thank you. All that remains to say is thank you for joining us this week. Next time on the podcast, we will actually be taking a break for the holidays. And I'm actually taking a break for, I guess, podcast maternity leave for a little while. So you won't have me for a bit.
By the time you hear us again, LJ will probably have a baby.
Yeah, I will. So I probably won't be recording the podcast for a little while, but everyone else will be also having a break for the holidays. So they won't have an episode for you until the new year. And I still can't believe that we're heading into 2021. It feels like something from a science fiction show. But when we come back, Meg, Justine and Amanda will all be talking to you all things GBbo 2020 again. They'll be covering episode 5 pastry and episode 6 Japanese. And you can expect that in your pod feeds on January 18th, whilst I'm probably in labour. So
at the exact same time.
Good luck to me and good luck to everyone else.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Woo.
Happy New Year.
Happy everything.
Thanks for listening to Pod Appétit Gourmet Takes.
We'd love to hear from you, so find us on Twitter and Instagram at pod_appétit.
And on Facebook at Pod Appétit Podcast.
You can also email us at podappetitpodcast@gmail.com and find all of our episodes on our website, podappetitpodcast.com.
Tabletop Tiddies is a new Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition actual play podcast run entirely by people of marginalized genders. Join me, Dungeon Master Charlene Bear, and my 4 Chaos Demons as they attempt to survive the Wildwell Trials in Tabletop Tiddies' first homebrew campaign. A fight to the death. A test of skills and ability. A conspiracy theory for rebellion in the making. But also,
feel the pain of my fist if you touch my cat.
Darling, it just fits your style. Are you a paladin? 'Cause I'm smitten.
don't follow me! I don't know what I'm doing! Tabletop Tiddies, available live on Twitch and wherever you get your podcasts. For more information, follow us on social media at Tabletop Tiddies or visit our website, www.tabletoptiddies.com. That's Tabletop Tiddies, with 2 Ds if you know what I mean.